one, we are going live.
Wait, countdown. Awesome. Okay, I'm
We
going
are
to wait.
live. Yeah, I'm distributing it.
Great. Okay, we'll wait now for feedback, as always. My screen is also on. Okay, I think we're live. All right, folks on YouTube, very quickly, if you can just let me know on chat if the AV is clear, we'll get started. This always ruins my beginning because you have to do this customary check. I prepare this beginning and then it just goes for a toss. But let me know please on chat if you can hear us, you can see them, if you can hear me, and then we'll get started. Abhishek Paul says clear, fantastic. Okay, awesome people. Let's get started then. Great, welcome everyone on YouTube. I'm particularly very excited about this session. I know that I tend to say this in the beginning of every session, and I mean it every time. But this time my excitement is probably 5 times, right? And I'll tell you why. One, these are students, right? And as a teacher, I'm most happy when I'm interacting with students. I mean, I'm happy to interact with admissions team, dean, professor, and all of that. If anybody's listening, don't take it otherwise. But students obviously have a special place in my heart, and I'm most excited to talk to students. All right, and particularly so these 4 students on the panel, they were in the same boat last year. I mean, at least 3 of them were at the same boat last year. One of them 2 years ago, exactly in the same boat as you folks, right? Battling this grueling personal interview season, and these folks made it. Right, they prepared. They have, of course, had strategies which they'll discuss, and they made it to some solid tier 1 schools. And that's amazing, and that's why they're here to sort of they've graciously agreed to share their secrets, share their strategies with you. So make the most of this session, interact with them. We'll have ample time for Q&A. Okay, I of course have a set of questions which are based on FAQs that I keep hearing from students. I'll go through that, and then we'll have ample time at the end for your questions. Okay. So yeah, so definitely very excited. I hope you folks are excited too. The panel is excited for sure. They've already confirmed that. So we will get started. Okay, awesome. I'm going to introduce these 4 brilliant students. I'll start with since ZAT results are out today, I'm going to start with the student from XLRI. We have Harsh Vardhan. Harsh, if you can they can see your name, but if you can just wave. He's a second-year XLRI HRM student. Abhishek, can you put yourself on mute, please? Sorry. Okay, great. All right, I'll start again. So Harsh Vardhan is a second-year XLRI HRM student. He's a BCom Honors Finance. His ACADS are 767. We'll talk about that later. His work experience is less than 1 year in a marketing role in a startup before joining XLRI. And I also asked these students what's the best thing about their school. And Harsh said that XLRI is the oldest B-school in the country, which embodies ethical leadership while serving communities of business and society for the greater good. That's his most favorite thing about XLRI. Harsh, welcome.
Thank you, Jatin. Always happy to be here.
Yes, and Harsh is a veteran on our channel. He's been helping our students for past 2 years, so it's always a pleasure to have him. All right, I'm going to move on to Sanjeev now. Sanjeev VG. You can wave. He has MDI Gurgaon in the background as well, so you can't miss him. He's a first-year MBA student at MDI, mechanical engineer from RV College of Engineering, Bangalore. Worked at ITC for around 2 years in supply chain. And according to Sanjeev, the best thing about MDI would be its campus and its location in the center of the hub. All right, welcome, Sanjeev.
Thanks, Jatin. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Moving on quickly to Aaron Pacheco from BITSoM. He'll wave his hand. Aaron is a first-year BITSoM student. He's an electronics and communications engineer. He worked at Siemens Limited for 4 years. And the best thing about BITSoM, according to Aaron, is it's a new age B school focused on integrating a variety of new subjects by engaging students with faculty from across the globe. That's his favorite part about BITSoM. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Sure, Jatin.
And my camera is acting up. Sorry about that. These are jitters before going to IIM-Calcutta. Okay. All right, we've got Rohan Joshua Asveen from IIM Kolkata. He's from Chennai. He did his electronics and communications engineering from VIT Vellore. Worked as a software engineer with Amadeus for 20 months in Bangalore. And he's going to be interning with InCred Capital in an investment banking role this summer. Now, he's extremely passionate about music, and that's his go-to when life gets stressful. So I'm sure lots of music happened when you were preparing for PIs
Yes,
last season.
sure.
Okay, all right. Best thing about IIM-C is the student culture, according to Rohan. Their tagline is "We leave no one behind," and that really gets inculcated in everything that they do. Awesome. I love that tagline. Welcome, Rohan.
Thanks, Sachin. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Great, folks. So amazing. Super excited to get this session started. Now, my first question to you folks is, you obviously you were in the same boat, at least three of you. So Rohan, Aaron, Sanjeev are CAT 22 students. Harsh is a CAT ZAT 21 student. All right. So you were in the same boat, right? Of course, you cleared these comparative exams, and then that takes a toll, and then you have this massive PI season ahead of you. What was your preparation approach for the personal interview season?
So maybe I can start then.
Sure.
Sure. So I think for me, preparation for the PI phase was almost as important, or probably even more important than the actual CAT exam. That is because one, having a lot of interviews, you don't really have a lot of time to actually sit and prepare for each single thing individually, and therefore taking it seriously is very, very important. There is a whole range of things that you have to cover, from your personals to academics to if you have work ex, you have to prepare that as well, and current affairs. And so taking preparation seriously is very, very important, especially if you have calls and you really want to give this a very, very serious shot. So it's definitely the most important thing.
Okay. So how long would you say, Rohan, was your sort of like your preparation timeline? I know, of course, it's pretty long because interviews happen in multiple months. But when did you start, and for how long did you prepare approximately?
Sure. So I think last year we got our CAT results at the end of December.
Yeah. Same like.
So I think
yeah,
same like this year. So I think from then on, till maybe even my last interview, which was I think FMS in April, it was just full preparation because you always have interviews and you always have the next thing coming. So you really have to keep up to date with current affairs and have to make sure that whatever you've learned as well, you still remember for that entire time. So I think that was the timeline in which I had to prepare really seriously.
Okay.
So
Okay. So December last week till April, till your FMS interview call.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody else you want to share your preparation approach?
Yeah, I would like to go now.
Yeah,
That's okay.
please.
Carry on.
Okay. So I would say one thing, the tougher bit about interview prep is that the variables are too many to control. For the exam prep, I think you just have a few variables where you can just focus on a couple of subjects, and that gives you more or less a structure on how to approach the exam. But the interviews are a bit more, let's just say, vague in terms of preparation. So I think understanding and dividing the various aspects of your life and as well as what is happening in the world is what basically is needed to essentially, prep for interviews pretty seriously. Because again, if you're not thorough with your knowledge, then I don't, it's pretty difficult to, make it through an interview.
Right. And when you say knowledge, you mean like academics, current affairs, sort of collecting all that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. Sanjeev?
Yeah, for me, actually, I had a bit of problem in communicating things. Even though if you know everything and if you struggle at communicating, that's a major hit point when you're giving a personal interviews. And
Yeah.
most of the B schools concentrate on communication. So as I was a bit weak in that, I speak fast. So I had to work on that. So I started prepping for these PIs as soon as I finished my CAT, while studying for SNAP and that. So it helped me a bit. But luckily, my interviews got over by Feb end, so I had a very short span of preparations.
Okay. So Sanjeev, you brought up by the way, thanks so much for sharing, because this will help a lot of students who have the same sort of area of development. You said that you weren't great at communication, so you started early. But then, did you do anything specific to improve your communication skills in these 2.5 months?
Yeah, actually, 2 I would enroll for 2 right? So I had a very great community among us. We used to form groups and we used to take each other's interviews. Even though we had to write many exams back to back, we used to take each other's interviews and we used to pinpoint what are the faults they found. So most
That's
of the
great.
feedback I had gotten is I speak a bit way too fast and it's harder for them to understand. So as
Mm.
my interviews were online, so we also conducted these mock interviews online. So this one thing helped me a lot. So I got a good
Amazing,
feedback from there.
amazing. Okay, great. By the way, Sanjeev is saying this on his own, by the way. Okay, Sanjeev, Rohan, and Aaron are two IIM alumni. Okay, from last year, and I think that's a great point that Sanjeev brought in, right? The peer-to-peer support, and I maintain this, Sanjeev. By the way, I keep saying this, and Aaron and Rohan know this well. I keep saying this to
Yeah.
this current batch as well, that they have big shoes to fill, because their class and their cohort was just amazing in terms of that camaraderie, uplifting each other, peer-to-peer support. So peers can really sort of help you, right? You might have limited mock interviews from your provider, but that's a great idea, right? Just getting together, doing GDs, helping each other with mocks. I think that would be super helpful. It's great practice. Awesome, Sandeep. Brilliant point. Aaron, anything to add here?
Yeah, I would like to mainly touch on the point CAT normally gets over somewhere towards the end of the year, and if you get a fairly decent score, you feel like you feel a bit relieved, you feel like taking your foot off the gas a bit, and that is actually just the initial battle that you
Right.
fought or perhaps thought you won. The war is yet to come, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of battles that you'll have to go through. So you got to pull your socks up and keep attacking it.
Yeah.
Try and form groups for practicing personal interviews with some of your friends or any of your peers, so you can get a different perspective from different people as to how they would view your profile, and keep going at it. And yeah, that's just the way. Don't lax. Don't give up.
Take your
Pushing.
foot off
Keep
the pedal.
pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think, yeah, when an exam, and this is as a faculty, this is my sort of worry as well. The results come out, and obviously you can't sort of talk about these things when the results come out, right? You take a moment out to celebrate, but I think by
For
now,
sure.
with the calls coming in, everyone's got a taste of that, right? And I think, yeah, hopefully everyone has started preparing actively. If you haven't, yeah, just start right now, because now
Yeah.
is the okay.
The calls will
Awesome.
also come in thick and fast. You won't know when your call is. You won't know how much time you have to prepare. It's random, and
Yeah.
you have to be ready for when they call you. So
Definitely.
put your best foot forward always.
Okay. Those are great sort of initial tips about preparation, and now we'll go deeper, folks. So again, I'll do my section. We'll have ample time for questions. Don't worry. You can keep putting your questions in Q&A, and I'll keep coming back to them. We'll answer as many as possible. Now, from general approach, I'll zero in on a couple of a few areas, right, that students usually find challenging. One is academics, right? Academics is like a pain point for most students, especially people with work experience, even freshers, right? They're like, COVID batch, or I have to go back to my first year subjects and all of that. You know what I'm talking about. How did you guys, was academics a pain point number one for you, and how did you navigate that? How did you go about preparing for it?
I can start with
Sure,
this. So, I'm an electronics engineer, and my entire work ex was purely in the electronics domain. So I had been pretty much in touch with what I studied, not entirely everything, but the core subjects at least. I had been practicing it during my work ex. Now, to speak from a BITSoM point of view, BITSoM in your interview would test your academics very slightly. So in the view of BITSoM, an MBA is more of a generalist degree and not a specialist degree. So they would like you to be overseeing everything and rather be specialized in a particular topic. So they would not really press you hard on academics. They would focus more on essays and other aspects, which we can talk about later.
Right.
But yeah, for BITSoM in particular, academics would not be a pain point.
Yeah.
However, in other interviews, yes, I have faced it. They have gone quite deep on some concepts. They've also tried to divert from my core field to another field. So the safest thing is to be calm. Even if you don't know the answer, don't lie. Admit it straight up front, and you can always take an educated guess.
Yeah.
There's no harm in doing that.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. What about others? How did you prepare for academics? Because it's like, it's a sea of subjects and information. So any particular approach?
I'm an electronics and communication engineer as well, like Aaron, but my work ex was completely software based, so I did not know anything. I did not remember anything by the time the interviews rolled around. So my strategy was actually to prepare at the surface level for most subjects.
Right.
And I would pick one or two subjects that I was good at in my UG, and I would go deep into them. So,
Okay.
surface level questions, I think everyone should be prepared with, like, like the very fundamental basics of every subject. But, if an interviewer asks you a very detailed question about, a specific topic, at least you can say, I'm not very proficient in this subject. I really like this subject in my UG. Maybe if you could ask me a question from that, that would really, I would be able to answer that. So I think that is a really good, that is a tip that I would give people, to prepare 2 subjects in depth, so that, even if the interviewer asks you what your favorite subject is, you can probably answer some question. Also, another tip is, if the interviewer asks you what your worst or your least favorite subject is, don't actually mention your least favorite subject. Mention a subject that, maybe you were slightly average at, so that you could actually maybe answer something from that. So yeah, that's another tip that I would give you.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
That's a nice one.
That's cheeky.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is the difference between being strategic. So obviously you don't lie in the interview, but it's also not a confessional, right? In Rajesh's words, you have to be strategic. I think that's a great tip. That's a great tip. But I think one thing, I mean, that will, I'm sure, definitely stick. But one thing that he mentioned was surface level basics across the board, or all core subjects.
Yes.
Picking up 2 subjects and going deeper into that. I think that's a good structure. Harsh or Sanjeev, anything from your end, from academics?
Yeah. So I didn't really study a lot during my UG. I focused on other things. And so preparing for academics was not like revision for me. It was actually studying again. So I followed something along the lines of what Rohan said. So
Okay.
I focused on a couple of subjects, and because I majored in Fin, I was supposed to know Fin, right? And then I was working in marketing, so I was supposed to know marketing as well. So those were the 2 major subjects that I focused on. And apart from that, a little bit of accounting and a little bit of law never really, you know, was a problem. And that is what I did. I prepped on the surface level for most things. And what I majorly focused on was the application bit of the knowledge. So relating it to current affairs or having analogies to explain it to someone else. Because again, most interviewers that you're going to face are also generally engineers, right? So if you're a non-engineer, then you want to have that sort of connect and make it relatable to them as well. So
Correct.
that is what I did mostly.
Okay. And maybe this is the time to talk about it, because you had a 767 in your academics, right? Harsh, is that
Yeah,
right?
that is my academic profile.
So I'm sure there are a lot of students who are worried about it, but right, I mean, but with the 767, you did make it to XLRI, which is like one of the top schools of the country, right? So any advice to students who are in the same boat, maybe nervous about their academics?
See, I will just say one thing about it, and that I felt very nervous about my academics as well. But then I had a decent percentile in CAT and ZAT as well. So I had some calls under my sleeves.
Okay.
And you will always feel, a sense of imposter syndrome, and that will not go away. But what I can truly say is that with great academics, if your interview sucks, you're not in, and with bad academics, if your interview is great, you are in. Your academics will not be a hindrance as long as you get the call. Now, getting a call is again another issue, but I don't think that is what we are here for today. So,
Of course.
I think if you are a good interviewer and good interviewee and you give a good interview, you will be in. There is nothing that will stop you.
Okay, awesome. So if your academics are low, you're worried about it. If you have a call, all the more reason to prepare and go all out and do really well in life.
And
Awesome.
again, just to add on to it, a lot of people have this reputation that XLRI does not focus a lot on academics, right? And it does not look at your academic profile as much. But I would say one thing, come to XLRI and you will see that most people are 998s and right there, right? So it's not a coincidence that happens. And more importantly, I also had, I'm COE converted as well. So if you can offset it with your percentile in your interview, you're fine. You don't need to worry much about it.
Awesome. That's good to know. That's good to know. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Harsh. So we'll move to the next. Actually, before moving on, just one more question on this, right? See, you folks prepared for academics across the board. So did you like go back to your books, or was there like another resource that you had for preparation? Because that's also often what students struggle with. Should I go back to my 10 books? How do I prepare? So how did you guys prepare? What resources did you use?
So
For me, it was sorry.
yeah, Ram.
Yeah, Sanjeev,
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, I had a shortcut with me. So I was living with my friend who was preparing for his IAS exams, UPSC exams. So basically, he had his elective in as a mechanical subject, which is same as mine. So I got a little bit of help from his side. The subjects which is mentioned in the materials of UPSC elective CPCs, right? So those have a pretty good content and they have the latest information on what's going on rather
Okay.
than the outdated syllabus in our graduation. So I
Okay.
used that, and I also used to frequently interact with him to get to know it better. So that was
Okay.
one way of
Got it.
preparing for
Got it.
academics.
Okay. So you had notes that sort of helped you out. Great.
Yeah.
Anybody else, like any other resource that you used apart from going back to books?
I mean, it was mostly YouTube for me. I think like
YouTube.
you
Okay.
just you have a lot of, especially for engineers, you'll have hundreds of playlists.
Right.
You know, for any subject. And honestly, I think I use those subjects to prepare for my actual degree as well. So
Right.
I think
Right.
those would be fine for revision. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. YouTube for the win then. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. I think on Google also, if you just like, I do that sometimes in front of like mock interviews. If I don't have any idea of the domain, I would say like, engineering basics or mechanical engineering basics for an MBA interview or something like that. You Google and you get a ton of resources there as well. Questions from transcripts and stuff. And one thing that you folks can do is consult transcripts, right? That'll also give you an idea. Like for instance, thermodynamics. Laws of thermodynamics is like a favorite question that comes up again and again. So you can get that from transcripts
Yes.
as well. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Maybe
Go ahead.
if I could add, actually one one thing that I used during my interview preparation that was very helpful was actually ChatGPT, and that is
Okay.
ChatGPT is very useful for things that you have that you need static information on, or basically static information like
Yeah.
maybe events that have happened in the past, current affairs that have happened in the past, or a subject matter like this. It's actually very helpful because it will give you a proper detailed explanation on whatever you want to know. So that is a resource that I would recommend to people for sure.
Great tip.
So.
Great tip. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. All right, now moving on to current affairs. Now that's like another pain point, right? Now this is even like more vast and huger than academics. So how did you folks go about preparing for that? What resources did you consult? Was there an approach? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah, so current affairs as a subject is very vast, right? It's very impossible to get back all of your basics for the past 6 months and 1 year. So what I majorly concentrated is the whatever I talk about in about my profile, right? Whether be it me my native location, my graduation, and my work experience. So whatever is happening revolving around them. So I got finalized with that first. So I was thorough with everything about my company, and that helped me a lot. I think in 3 interviews, they asked me the market cap of my company, and I was accurate with the number. And whatever the news happening around my company, even though I left a year ago, I had to
Right.
know that because they don't care if you leave a year ago or when. If you worked in that company, you have to know everything about that company.
Correct.
So I started my current affairs with that. And other thing is you get a monthly magazine. I don't know the name of the magazine, GK Vision. It gives a compendium of the current affairs of the past month.
Okay.
It gives in a very brief and bulleted points and whatever you require to know, not too much in essential. So I'll get back to the name of the book.
Sure.
I
Let
used to
me
refer
know, and
that.
I'll add it to the comments for.
Yeah.
So that magazine, so sort of that compendium.
Company.
Okay.
That's a free magazine if it buy an online one.
Oh, awesome. Let me know the
Yeah.
name. I'll add it to
Yeah.
I'll add it to the comments, folks. Okay. What about others? Current affairs?
Yeah, so I would recommend to go through some of the biggest news that are at that point of time. So during our interview session, I think we had the Hindenburg report out and we had the Silicon Valley bank crash. So those were the two main issues, and whatever's up and about and very common, try to dig down deep and get into the nitty-gritty, get the entire story out of it, because it's very likely that a vast number of panels could ask you the same.
Correct.
And even if you succumb to pressure from other sort of current affairs question, they would generally probe you and ask you if you have any topic that you would like to speak about, and then you can always bring it up.
Right.
So yeah, be prepared on the main topics for sure, and then you can go after the smaller ones.
Got it. Okay. Anything else, Rohan or Harsh? Anything else new, like something that has not been covered till now with current affairs?
I think it is pretty comprehensive. I would just suggest one thing. Not just read GK or prep for current affairs as static. Look at it from an implementation perspective as well. So suppose Rohan and Aaron are like EC engineers, right? So currently the geopolitical tensions in Taiwan and how that affects the semiconductor industry is a question that would just prop up naturally for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, if I'm a finance grad, then why did Hindenburg do what is, short selling? What is
Hmm.
put options? Again, those questions can be expected out of you. So don't just read the news, just understand the underlying basics of it as well and the implications of the real world as well. So again, if you do that, then you, even though, someone might answer more questions, if you have that depth, and depth beats, breadth always,
Definitely.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So prep for few things, but prep well, be thorough, and you will get your chance. It's current affairs. Yeah, like Aaron said, they will either ask you, what do you want to speak on, or you will hit something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a good point. So both Sanjeev and Harsh spoke about those connections, right? Sanjeev said linking current affairs to your location, to your company, and Harsh said to your industry, to what you've done in your academics. I think because that's how they typically would sort of question you in the interview. I mean, they do sort of pick up random questions as well, but most questions are linked to the aspects in your profile, right? So maybe that's a good way of preparing for current affairs as well. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Now, before we go to questions on YouTube, right? Let's so you folks are from 4 different schools, right? So let's discuss a little bit about nuances with respect to your schools, because I know that each one of your school has some sort of quirky aspects and nuances in personal interviews, right? So let's talk about that. Maybe we'll start with Rohan, right? Rohan, IIM Calcutta, and also you're representing Black Eye, right? So first
Sure.
talk
Yeah.
about the quirks in an IIM-C interview, and then discuss a little bit about Black Eyes as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
So regarding Black Eye, I gave 5 out of the 6 interviews. I did not give I didn't get a call from Ahmedabad.
Right.
But honestly, I can say like all 5 interviews was so different. It was like, you wouldn't even remember, you wouldn't even understand what was happening in that moment. But so I think that I would say about Black Eye is typically interviews tend to be on the longer side. So I think my interviews ranged anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. So you have to be prepared to actually be actively in the zone for about 20 to 40 minutes for an interview. One thing I can mention is, they can ask you anything. I think my IIM Lucknow interview was about politics. IIM, Calcutta was about, my work ex and, how that relates to, current to what is happening at the time. IIM Bangalore was actually completely about, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to get out of an MBA and, how it could actually contribute to IIM Bangalore. So I think you have to prepare for everything. There's no other way around it. You have to prepare for every single way or every single line of questioning. And maybe just a small anecdote from my IIM Calcutta interview. So my IIM Calcutta interview was a complete stress interview. They were disagreeing with everything I said, no matter what I said. And I still remember one of the profs, she did not sit during the entire interview. She was standing the entire time. She was standing to my side, and she was basically, talking to me like that. I had the same prof.
Standing beside you.
Yeah, in front of me, but towards the side.
Okay, that's
yeah. It's pretty, in a pretty intimidating, pretty intimidating way. And she was questioning everything I was saying. But when I came here, when I came to IIM Calcutta, she was my first term accounts prof, and she was the sweetest prof, I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a small anecdote for everyone. Like no matter what is happening, you just understand that they're actually trying to put you under pressure. That is the whole point of the interview. So remain calm, be confident, smile, and you'll get through it. They're also human. They understand that you're just a fresher. In the sense you're just getting to the MBA space. So don't worry about it. Just be confident, and you'll be fine. So yeah.
That's a good anecdote. That's a good, and you made it, right? You, in spite of that
stress,
you're there. So you clearly sort of did well. So yeah, okay, that's a good tip. That's a good tip. But that's funny, by the way. I'm sure that's a really awkward experience.
Yeah.
Like, the first visual that came in my head was roadies. You know how they sort of like tower over you.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's interesting. Aaron, what about you? I know BITSoM interviews, and you did sort of hint at that, but talk to us about it. How are they?
Yeah, so BITSoM interviews are an exact stark contrast to what Rohan just said. So it will not be a stress interview by any means.
Right.
It would be on average about 35 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
And they would continuously try to get to know you and your entire profile better. So this is your chance to portray all the abilities that you have and everything that you've done so far in the best way possible.
Right.
So even though you may have a lot of achievements or you may have qualities that your profile contains, you also have to package it well and deliver it across, because if it doesn't reach the other side, then it won't benefit you as much.
Yeah.
And there won't be much stress on academics. Of course, if you're a fresher, then since there won't be much to talk about in work experience, they would perhaps ask you maybe a favorite subject and a few questions deeper there. But if you express yourself that you're not very comfortable with a particular question, the interviewer will not press you further on that. They will move on, and that will not count against your candidature.
That's good. That's good.
So you can always speak up and speak
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And one thing's for sure is the panel is not out there to accept or reject you. They are just out there to evaluate you. They'll be making their comments, and that will be sent to another committee, which will then further process the admission.
Okay.
So you will not be accepted or rejected at that particular point.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the interview is pretty much free flowing, and the idea of the interviewer is to get out and to know better what your strengths are rather than your weaknesses. So whatever you've put in as your strength, they would like you to elaborate further. They would like to see leadership qualities in you. Where have you displayed them over your career? And perhaps spikes that you have in your CV, if you could bring that out in the interview, that would work well for you as well.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. It would be pretty much relaxed, laid back.
Does it rely mainly on the SOP or essay that you submit?
Yeah, it would revolve heavily around the SOP, around the essay that you've written. And one of the criteria of the essay is for a strength. So basically that's your chance to display a story around your most greatest strength. But it's not just like you say, I'm a fast learner, or I'm something like that. You have to give an example where you've displayed that particular quality.
Yeah.
So that would convince the interviewer just by throwing out.
I'm guessing these questions like, tell me about a time when you exhibited good leadership skills. Tell me about a time when you navigated a challenge at work.
Yeah,
Are these the common style of questions that come up?
Yeah, that's normally the common style of questions that would come in a general interview. So what I would suggest all the candidates is, while you're giving your tell me about yourself pitch initially itself, you can put several hooks in areas where you would want the interviewer to pull from.
Okay.
And where you think you have strengths, and you can talk a lot about it, and you can talk in depth about it.
Okay.
So you can in a sense control the interview.
Yeah.
And make it in the best way possible how you can convey what you want to convey.
Got it.
Don't miss out on any opportunity.
Makes sense. Good tips. All right, Sanjeev, what about you? Any MDI nuances?
Yeah. So MDI interviews are usually short, right? Revolving around 15 to 20 minutes. But in rare cases, they even exceed 30 minutes. Mine was around, I guess, 15 minutes.
Okay.
So the important thing is the way you communicate and how well you come across as a good fit for MDI and MBA in general.
Right.
So they assess you based on how well you converse rather than just answering the questions. It's better to keep it as a conversation.
Okay.
And again, the interviews will not heavily be based on aptitude or math, but a lot of general questions, especially revolving around your profile. So just knowing your profile in detail is very important. As I said, for me, they asked a lot of questions about my company, and they sometimes they lay traps also while testing your knowledge about the company. For example, for me, they asked the market cap in lakh crores of ITC, but whereas it was actually not exceeding 1 lakh crores, it was in 1,000 crores. So I had to improvise, and when I said that, they were really impressed. So in a sense that they want to know how well you know the subject.
Correct.
And as an important thing said by Aaron is that we have to keep the answers crisp. Like for example, the main question, tell me about yourself. If it's crisp and if it's filled with hooks, so that they can catch the hooks, and again ask us about that. We will be driving the interview and not them.
Right.
And coming to another aspect is the non-verbal part of communication in an interview. So it's very important to maintain good body gestures and also show movements of hands and maintain eye contact as well.
Okay.
And especially if it's a stress interview, it's good to smile in the end, because they just want to test your if you are willing to take the rigor which is coming ahead. That's it. Nothing else in the stress interview. So if you smile at the end, it displays a lot of confidence, and that works well for me.
Okay. And are stress interviews common in MDI?
Not really.
Not really. Okay.
Not really, but you can expect them. It's not like you don't get a stress interview. I have interacted with many people who had stress interviews.
I'm sure. Well, yeah, once in a while, so that can happen to any college.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I think we'll also talk about folks. We'll also talk about work experience. Sanjeev did touch on an important point, right? Knowing about your company, market cap, those details. So we'll come down to that. But Harsh, let's go to you. Let's talk about XLRI, because I know that's also kind of like a special style of interview. So talk to us about that.
Right. First of all, I guess the duration is important. Be prepared for a 25 to 30 minute interview. That is generally the length of an interview. And if you're worried about getting grilled, that does not happen for XLRI. They focus on, trying to give you your best shot into making it into college. They don't really grill you. And they majorly focus on, your SOP first of all. So you, I mean, at least last 2 years, they had 8 questions in the SOP.
Yeah, yeah.
And 4 for BM, 4 for HR. And considering that that will be out soon, I would say that don't write contradicting answers in BM and HR SOPs because they have access to all 8 questions. So
Right.
you might be in trouble there if you write my passion is BM in one and my passion is HR in another. So don't do that. So it would
I
revolve
remember
around your
I
SOP.
remember last year when we had that XLRI session with you and Kamal, right? You mentioned the same thing. I think so, folks. This is an important point. Don't forget. Don't make that mistake of putting contradict. I'm super passionate about HR. I love working with people, and then suddenly what marketing and operations and all of that. Anyway, Harsh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Not an issue. So again, they will see the thoroughness of your your values and the way you have taken decisions in your life and how that makes sense or not. So
Okay.
you need to be coherent and you need to be value based. So this is what I wanted to do. This is why I wanted to do it, and this is what I got out of it.
Hmm.
Essentially, is what you need to have clarity on. And I will say one thing: if you're a fresher, be ready to be asked about your academics. They will ask
Right.
you academic questions. In fact, one question in the SOP is your favorite subject. They
Hmm.
might touch upon it, or they might go exactly opposite of it.
Right.
So they can tell what your weakness is. These guys are seasoned professionals. So they look at your favorite subject and they know what your weakness is
Yeah.
straight up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so prep for your weak subjects, I would say. Don't just ignore it.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
remember I was asked a maths question in my Excel interview.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Now, I didn't have a great quant percentile. I had a decent quant percentile. And again, I'm a commerce student. So that was expected, right? That I wouldn't
Yeah.
know it. And I didn't know it. But they were kind enough to, not take that into a negative.
Right.
But apart
Right.
from that, you know, they focus a lot on academics, current affairs. For WorkX folks, they don't really take academics into you know a deep line of questioning, but they do ask. So like Rohan said, right, that he worked in a software company after doing EC. So they
Hmm.
will question you on that because why did you do that? Why did you make
Hmm.
that decision, right? So that is what you need to prepare for XLRI interviews.
Okay.
And
Okay.
overall, it's a good interview. You won't really be grilled, but make sure that your SOP tells a story
Hmm.
and make sure you tell a story. And
Hmm.
so these guys talked a lot about hooks, right?
Hmm.
But I guess I will give you an example of what a hook is or how you drive
Right.
the interview. So again, academics not my strong suit. I would assume that is the same for many. You don't mention academics. I didn't even mention I did a BCom. I just skipped over it. I didn't mention I did a BCom. I didn't mention I'm a finance graduate because that is something that you include in your introduction, right? If I do include it in my introduction, I am going to get grilled on it, and I don't want to get grilled on it.
Hmm.
So, if your strength is academics, focus on that. I focus mainly on my extracurricular activities, the internships I had done, the experience I had had. And essentially, that is what, I was questioned on. Sure, later it gone into academics because again, they know that if you're trying to drive the interview, but but yeah, you can at least have 15-20 minutes of your interview and then they can have 10 minutes of their interview.
Correct, correct. At least, and I think that's an interesting point. Again, quite strategic. Can go both ways, right? They can sort of pick on the fact that he didn't mention it, so maybe he's not confident. But I think one thing that you've mentioned, and I think that's quite important, is they will come to academics, but at least the start, the first half goes in your favor. So that gives you that momentum and confidence as well, right? So that's a good point. That's a good point. Awesome. All right, folks. So we'll, of course, I have lots of questions for them, so I'll keep chatting. But let me also start taking questions from chat. So if you have any questions, keep putting them on chat. I see a lot of them here. I'll take them one by one, but please don't hesitate to put your questions. And also, I keep forgetting to say this, but please hit like. Okay, if you're enjoying the stream, please hit like and subscribe to our channel as well. All right, somebody's saying nostalgia. Oh, okay, they're feeling nostalgic. All right, let's, okay, let's see. Yes, Priyanshu Aaron, this is for you. He has a question about BITSoM. He's saying BITSoM
Sure.
interviews focus a lot on behavioral aspects from what I've heard. How to specifically prepare for this apart from the general CA academics, etc. So like the behavioral aspect, how do you go about preparing for it?
Uh, when you say behavioral, it's not entirely focused on behavioral. It is focused on your full profile.
Okay.
There is weightage given to your academics. There is weightage given to your entrance score. There is weightage given to your work-ex. Although the distribution of the composite score is not revealed,
Right.
it is evenly distributed. And if you have not done too well in one particular domain, you can always make up for it with a larger spike in another domain. So what would be important for you is how to put that across in your interview. If you've not already done it in the essays that you've submitted, try to put it in the best way possible in the interview. Try to put it across in whatever form or way you can, bring it up and then talk about it so that the interviewer knows that you've done so and so thing and you can bring that across.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
Would you suggest, like, so you said it's heavily based on the SOP, right? Would you suggest them to sort of sit with the SOP that they've submitted and then for each point sort of, list down examples, experiences from the past so that, because
Yes.
in the interview it doesn't come up, right? When they ask you, talk to me about experience or something like that. Would you
Correct.
suggest something on those lines?
Yeah, so the interviewer, before the interview just has the data that you've submitted, your
Correct.
grades and your essays.
Yeah.
So they have read your essays, they know what to expect from the person, and they would like to know a bit more on what you've already written. So they would
Correct.
ask you some questions that interest them.
Right.
And it would be your duty to be able to back up whatever you've written there. So I know it's a bit too late, but do not lie in your essays.
Right.
And
So people are still submitting. I mean, there are still applications.
yeah, so for whoever's still submitting, do not lie.
Yeah.
If there's something that you don't want to talk about, don't write it at all.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
write the points that you can, that are your strengths and that you can elaborate on, and be ready to back up any question from your essay.
Correct.
Like prepare on your entire essay, be ready to talk about anything that you may be asked on that.
Perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. So SOP is also not a confessional. Remember that. All right. Let's see. 1 second. I'm just looking for it. Okay. Abhi Banerjee has a question. I'll take that one. He says graduated in 2022 August, had little time to prepare for CAT 22, so took CAT 23, but I don't have work experience. I got calls from Lucknow and Indore, but will there be any consequences and affect my chances in the PI? I think his concern is the fact that, he took a gap year, doesn't have work experience, and he has LNI calls. Do you think this will affect his chances in any way, the gap?
Maybe I can take this then.
Yeah, sure.
So having a gap is okay, like in the sense, so in when you're giving an interview, you have to have a reason for have to have a very valid reason for the gap year, and
Correct.
preparation is fine. Like, that's not an invalid reason by any means, but you have to frame it in a way that actually impresses the interviewer and basically at least drives the conversation forward. You can't just say okay, I didn't want to work, I only wanted to study for CAT. It doesn't really work like that. Have some other examples of things that you did. You upskilled yourself in many other ways. You did something else. It doesn't even have to be academic. It can even be something else. So have an interesting answer to this question, because it will come up. It will come up for sure. There is no going around the fact. Obviously, it's not the ideal case, but it doesn't matter in the sense that in the end, it is something that you have to answer now. And so frame an answer to that question, and then yeah. So yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay. And I think one tip, Abhi, I can give you from my end is one, you'll have to definitely prepare for this question, right? Preparation, you need it for it. You can't wing it in an interview, especially if you're worried about a gap like these tricky points. Prepare, right? Get some assistance if you can. And if you prepare well and package an answer, as Rohan said, talk about what you did in the gap, because they basically want to know that. How did you utilize the gap? Did you do justice to that time? So if you prepare on those lines and talk about that, you'll be fine. But gaps per se, they won't hold it against you unless you're not able to justify it, right? So I think, yeah, that's something. Don't worry too much about it. You'll just need to prepare for it. Okay. Let's see. Prashant is asking, what can I highlight in my introduction if I have very less co-curricular and extracurricular activities? And I get this question a lot. I don't have awards. I don't have major accomplishments. So what do I do? So
Can I take
go
that?
ahead, Sanjeev. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the best thing I would suggest is if you have any work experience, so the best thing is to highlight the work experience, give it pointer or two about what exactly you have worked and how it has impacted the business as a whole. Or else, at least you can freely talk about the place you come from and an interesting fact about it or two. So sometimes it might help the interview drive the way on which you wanted to know.
Right,
So
right.
that would be
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Anything else from you folks? Rohan, Aaron?
Can also mention your favorite subject or the domain you want to get into. So you
Yeah.
can say that, I'm looking to pursue an MBA in marketing or something, and then the next question will straight up be why marketing.
Correct, correct.
It's that easy. I mean,
Yeah. And also,
Yeah,
I
you
think.
can also, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
He's
saying
saying he's a fresher, so that's some additional information he's giving. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Aaron.
you can also put in some of the hobbies and extracurricular activities that you've done,
Yeah.
particularly ones that you've excelled in or achieved something. And you never know if the interviewer is also interested in the same domain, you can form a connect right there and it can take
Definitely.
off from there. So that can
Definitely,
always work
definitely.
in your favor.
Correct. I was just going to say the same thing. I think Aaron exactly said articulated my thoughts. See, Prashant, if you are a fresher and you feel you have very less co-curricular and extracurricular activities, to give them an idea of your all-round personality, talk about your hobbies, right? And talk about your strong hobbies. If you have some strong hobbies, if you're passionate about something, again, use that word with caution, right? Don't use that word very lightly, because the moment you say you're passionate, they'll go all in, right? But if you are indeed passionate about it, if you have very strong interest, talk about that. That'll give them a good idea of your profile beyond academics, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But don't worry, not everybody has to have these awards and accomplishments, right? That's just the top 2-3% who has it. So don't worry too much about that. Okay, awesome. Let's take another question. Karnika Kanan wants to know, she has a work experience of 9 months in FMCG and continuing in IT industry. How should I approach the field change questions? Oh, so she switched from FMCG to IT. So, how does, they'll ask her, right? Why did you do that and stuff? So any tips on that?
Maybe I can.
yes.
I can.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go
Okay,
for it.
sure. So
This is, by the way,
I
this is
think
exactly not how a B school GD looks like.
yes,
Opposite of this happens.
for sure.
I'm going off track.
100%.
Right? Maybe you should talk about GD towards the end, but this is very, very sort of like, we used to call it googly back in the day in Google, but very nice and warm. But anyway, I'm digressing. Go ahead, Rohan. Go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe I can speak a little bit about field change, because I also technically had a field change from my engineering to my work ex. So I think the important thing is, I mean, obviously, one is you obviously had a fundamental reason for why you wanted to change. So, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight in that, you shift from, FMCG to IT. So include that answer, in why you made the switch in the first place. For me, it was, so the way I tackled the question was, I spoke about how I was always kind of interested in what I wanted to do. So I was always interested in software, and even throughout my engineering as well. And the switch seemed natural to me because that was something that I was good at. And I wanted to get some work experience before my MBA. So anyway, the quality of work experience, maybe you can even mention that you wanted to get exposure to different kind of fields before you actually did an MBA to get the most value out of an MBA. So there are multiple ways that you can tackle this question. Be consistent in what you're saying with the rest of your interview as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think it's a deal breaker in the sense, because people switch jobs all the time. Like even after your MBA, you shift streams all the time. So don't worry too much about it. Just have something prepared. I think that is the underlying theme for almost every question. So have something prepared and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a very good point. And the last point is very important. See, if you the fact that you're concerned about this question, you should just go all out and prepare. Okay, that's a general tip.
Yes.
And second, I think, students in their 20s, right, early 20s, mid, even late, right, are expected, they're expected to change their mind. They're expected to try out different things, before how would you know what you want to build your career on? You will try 3-4 different things, right? So that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. One thing that Harsh said, right, that for instance, XLRI wants to know the why behind your decision making. I think that is important. So you shifted, which is great. Your interest shifted, but prepare on the why part. Why did that happen? How did your interest shift? And so on and so forth. So I think as long as you're able to justify it, they won't hold that against you, right? It's a good thing to experiment, right? Okay, awesome. she'd gained an inclination towards it, right? So Karnika, then that's your answer. You need to build around that. Be honest, right? You gained an inclination towards IT, so talk about that, right? And then if you've been successful in your IT tenure, talk about that. So that sort of validates it, right? That you made the right decision and you did justice to it. Okay, awesome. Let's take Srinjay's question. Okay, navigate my academics. Maybe Harsh, you can probably take it. I'll read it out. How can I navigate my academics question, which is very good in 10th and UG, but very low in 12th? Oh, similar to Harsh. So very good in 10th and UG, very low in 12th. How can I reason it out without sounding cliched? I don't have a strong reason for low 12th percentage. And I know these questions are all tricky to just come up with answers, but we can discuss it. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
See, I would say, first of all, don't diminish what you faced. If it's, don't call it cliche, or don't say that you don't have a good reason for it. Reasons are personal. Whatever you went through, or whatever your reason was, maybe you just didn't like, your stream. Maybe you took PCM after 10th and you were like, "Arey, mere ko nahi padna." Matlab, that is something that can happen, right? So
Yeah.
again, you can just say that I just didn't enjoy the subjects that I had. Or maybe you can say that there was just too much pressure and I couldn't do justice to that. I was just not able to handle it well. So again, reasons are very personal in nature. Never say that your reason is not good enough, right? Any reason is good enough for whatever you do. And again, you have the solid backing of your 10th and 12th, right? 10th and UG, right?
UG, yeah.
So you can always say that, after, and UG matters more than your 12th. Because again, UG is something you choose, 12th is something that is majorly a decision that is made for you.
Yeah.
So go along those lines, right? That I didn't really know what was the right fit for me, and I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. And then I chose UG and then I did well, right? So that is a good justification for it. And again, as long as you've done, well in UG and you've done well in your 10th, it's okay to have a dip, right? You're human, you can shift your priorities in life. So don't worry too much about it. And again, answers are not cliche if you deliver them right. And cliches are general statements. If you can personalize them for yourself, then it's not an issue, right?
Yeah. I think that's a good tip. And Srinjay, also, I mean, I have a mock with you tomorrow morning, so we can talk more about this. But anyway, just for you, see, if the reason is that you didn't focus on academics in 12th, right? If that's what it is, you can package it well, be honest, and the fact that you pulled up your socks in UG, that's always a win. That upwards trajectory, you can always highlight that and say, I learned a lesson. I made a mistake, I learned a lesson, and I did well in my UG, right? So that's also a good story to talk about, but of course it needs packaging. More tomorrow morning. Okay. Folks, please like this stream, okay? If you're finding it useful, please don't forget to like. Okay, maybe I'll come down to the questions, but one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and Sanjeev did talk about it a little bit, was work experience. All four of you had work experience. I think Harsh said less than 1 year, right? In a startup, is that correct? Right, but all four of you had work experience. What aspects around your work experience did you prepare for?
Yeah, so I can start with that.
Sure.
I had a work experience of 4 years in the manufacturing domain in Siemens. And whatever I could highlight best, I pulled up from the major awards that I achieved, and whatever I've done to benefit the company max, and the data that I have on that, which I can pull up. And so always numbers and figures are more attractive than just plain bold out statements.
Definitely.
So wherever you can bring up numbers and you can showcase some of the abilities that you have in the way that you've done it for your company or somewhere in your work-ex, that would be highly beneficial to you. Also, in your company, you could have also done extracurricular activities within the company itself in the form of social service or any other aspect. You can also bring that up. It would also add value to your profile.
Okay.
And yeah, so try and bring up the major milestones, so the biggest things that you've done for your company, and that you have data to back for just in case.
Got it. So like your achievements, your key projects, impact, business impact, extracurriculars and stuff like that.
Try to bring forth the impact in the interviewer. So first the interviewer knows what the impact is, and then you can then further bring what the context was and what you did to achieve that particular form of impact.
Correct. I think that's very important. And those numbers that you spoke about are always gold. Whatever is not confidential, right? If it's confidential, then you can always mention you can always talk about rates, XX% or whatever, just like leading
100%.
FMCG company, leading this, leading that. So all of that you
Yeah.
can. About
I want to add one thing.
Yes,
One
Sanjeev.
more thing to the work experience thing. The first thing what I started learning about or like preparing about my work experience is that how am I relating it with my undergrad subject, right? So how relevant was my work experience with undergrad? In case if it is relevant, then it's highly important to mention that. And then the next thing I prepped is how would I like put forth what all I did in for 2 years within 4 lines.
Right.
A crisp intro about my work experience. Later on, if they ask, drill me down in detail, then for that I've prepared specifically again.
Right. Okay, correct. So if you're summarizing a work experience, if there's a question on that, again, throw hooks, throw headlines, right? And then they can sort of ask you for more detail. Did you folks research on your company? Like I know Sanjeev mentioned that market cap, but what about others? Did you take time out to collect that data?
Yeah,
So
the senior leadership data is very important.
Right.
If the company is, if it's a noticeable company, then senior leadership also plays an important role. Just read them.
So the names and right from the names and sort of profile.
Names and headquarters. Because you are expected to know that, right? You work for a company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And an interest in the business of your company is obviously, I mean, you're going for a business degree. So it starts with your company, right? But any other nuggets that you guys, folks, sorry, Sanjeev, go ahead.
Yeah, news about the company is also an important thing.
Correct.
Any recent strategic acquisitions
Correct.
and other major headlines. And
Correct.
also, I was asked, as I was from an FMCG industry, I was asked a lot of questions about FMCG also. So having industry knowledge a bit also is important.
Correct. So then company and then the industry that your company is. What about others? Anything specific about the company that you folks prepared on?
Yeah, some key metrics would be the firstly would be a market cap of the company. If it's a listed company, they would also perhaps maybe ask you the share price.
Yeah.
They could ask you the revenue figures. They could ask you the profitability numbers. And what's best would be is to try and get the annual report of your company, go through it. You'd get a lot of information from there. And you can always use that in your interview. It will help you a lot.
Definitely. So again, Aaron, you were from Siemens, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So Aaron came from a publicly listed company, right? So that data is of course available. A lot of times I get asked this question, what if my company is not publicly listed? Then a lot of this is going to be confidential. You wouldn't even have access to internally. So whatever's available, I would say like for companies that are not listed, website is a great resource. Whatever's externally available, talk about that, right? And of course, talk about your projects and stuff, but be careful of revealing any confidential information. That then that becomes a ethical issue, right? So be careful of that. Okay. Yeah, Nishant is asking, what if the company is private limited, right? So anything else apart from the website? I mean, I don't know if you folks had that experience.
So I would guess that if the company doesn't have data out to the public, then the interviewer would also not have that data, and they would understand if you portray that point across. So that's as much as you can go.
Correct. Yeah. So then Nishant, stick to the website, right? Stick to what is externally available in terms of press reports, press releases, website, and then I think that should be enough. And if they ask you
about the company, focus on news about the company. That would be very important then.
Correct. And if they ask you something which can't be revealed, then say it, right? Then say that it's a private company and it's confidential. I can't. That's even like a good point that you're protecting the company's interests.
And one more thing, Jatin, if you have worked in multiple companies, it's important to know about all the companies. Just don't focus on the recent one. Even if you worked 4 years ago, they might ask you the recent current events. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Harsh, you were saying something.
Yeah, I think it's also important to take a domain-wise approach to this as well. So if you're going to say that, I'm going to be doing a marketing or a finance degree, then you need to analyze the company from those perspectives. So suppose one very common question in Excel HR interviews again is that, what are some of the HR policies you like in your company? Most people don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So again,
and that's sort of a flag, right? If you
it's tough to recover from that.
Yeah, correct. See, this is the thing, and try to take a broader learning from this point. See, if you're telling them that you are interested in HR, and then the question is, what are the HR policies of the company? If you don't know that, then how are you going to validate your interest in HR? right? You'll have to validate the interest by showing that you have put in the efforts to acquire knowledge. You know about what is going on as far as that domain is concerned, and it starts with your company, right? So yeah, I think that's a brilliant point. That's a brilliant point. Keep that in mind, folks. Awesome. Let's see. Mansi says, great session so far. Thank you, Mansi. I hope you also hit like, do that. I have to start talking like a YouTube influencer now. But anyway, yeah, if there are any other questions, let me know in chat. We'll answer it. We're running out of time, but then we'll probably have, you folks have like 10 minutes to sort of go beyond.
Yeah,
Awesome.
sure.
Awesome. Great. So I'll wait for other questions to come in. But did anything funny happen in your interview? I mean, apart from the fact that somebody towered over Rohan in the interview, but did something funny happen that you would like to share from any of your interviews, not necessarily the school that you got through?
So I remember my co-code interview, right? So again, I am focused on academics and all of that, right? So I just went in prepared to get grilled, right? And then the first question they asked me after, tell me about yourself was my interests. And I told them about, so basically movies and paintings and stuff. And then my whole interview for 25 minutes was just on, the history of art and the painters and the paintings and all of that. And I was just impressed that they just knew that much about it, right? So
Yeah.
I will just say one thing: you don't know what your interview is going to know, right? These guys just sit and read at their homes for 10 hours a day. It's very difficult to.
Right.
And one more thing. So CAP interviews are very random, right?
Yeah.
I went into my CAP
Random
interview.
is such a nice way of putting it, but let's go on. Yeah.
I went into my CAP interview, and the first question, well, not even question. The interviewer straight up asks, how did you even make it to this interview with an academic background? Give me a reason in 30 seconds why I shouldn't kick you out of the meeting.
Oh my God.
Oh, and this was in CAP,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. What was your answer?
I just said that I met the criteria as established by these esteemed
Yeah.
institutions.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of thought went into that, and if I made it, then I deserve to give this interview.
Yeah.
So I just flipped it on them that you chose me to sit here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. such a weird.
That's a great answer, actually.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
a
good
good
answer.
answer under pressure.
It's very
Yeah.
respectful, and at the same time, it's very assertive, right? You're like,
Mm.
listen, you called me and I'm here. I'm respecting the opportunity that you gave me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
And
made
then
it.
in the end, I won't choose you. That's a different story. That's hilarious. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Anything else? Any other funny? What about you, Rohan? Like, did you get like by the way, did you get a math question in Calcutta? Because Calcutta throws those math questions, right?
Yeah. So it's notorious for math questions, but I actually did not get a math question.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually, one funny thing that happened in my IIM-Calcutta interview was there was a very basic, I don't remember the exact question now, but there was a very, very basic current affairs question that everyone is expected to know, and that I really messed it up. Like, I think it was some date, like, about when the Russia-Ukraine war started. It was something like that.
Okay.
And I'd completely messed up the date. Like, I like for no reason. And their reaction was so surprising, to my this thing. They all started laughing. And, it was really stressful at that moment because, I was trying to figure out what is going on in the interview. But, I think that's an important anecdote as well because, you don't have to get all the answers right in your interview. And I think even if you make one or two, blunders, if you can recover from it, and if you can prove to the interviewer that you actually belong in an environment where you can learn and contribute to the B school, you'll be fine. So I think that is one important takeaway from a very stressful and funny interview. So yeah.
Would it be fair to say that pretty much every candidate comes out not being able to answer 2 to 3 questions in an interview, like on an average? Common, right?
Yes.
Very common. Yeah.
Very common.
Great. I keep saying that to my students. So folks, remember that, right? Don't expect it's going to happen because I think typically they do that. They start with level 1. They'll take you to 2, 3, 4 to see how far you can go and then take you to a point where you say, I'm done, right? So and some questions, fact-based, academic, if you don't answer, doesn't really matter. Okay. Anything else funny? Any other funny incident? Sanjeev, Aaron?
Yeah, nothing funny. Just the way the interview goes, right? It's so random.
Yeah.
I was asked who was the CEO of my company, that's ITC, and apparently his name is also Sanjeev.
Okay.
So they started asking what is the meaning of the name, and are you even interested in being a CEO? Like it completely based random entry. So
So, yeah,
these things
sometimes,
happen, and we have to be prepared for these things
correct,
also.
correct. Sometimes I feel, panelists are just bored
Yeah.
after interview, and they just
Yes.
sometimes do this for their own entertainment. Let's just entertain
No,
us.
that's actually a very valid point because
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
these, especially in offline interviews,
Mm,
when you have a panel, you can be candidate number 9 or 10. They've already taken 10 interviews, half
correct,
an hour each. They're exhausted. They just want to
correct.
have fun with you. So
Right,
you have to be prepared for all of that. So yeah,
right, 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 right. Yeah, and the
that's true.
Lucknow politics thing that you mentioned, right? I've heard two other candidates say the same thing. The whole interview was around just political opinions
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Interesting. I'll take some questions. What does it say? Vishal is asking. No, Vishal, not at all a silly question. It's a valid question. What's the proper dress code? Okay, is it okay to go in a formal attire without the tie and coat? Okay, I'll read this again. Is it okay to go in a formal attire without the tie and coat? A basic formal attire, that is, as I know. All right. So maybe talk about what was your attire and to what extent was it formal, and is it okay to not wear a tie and not wear a coat? I'm fighting
Yeah,
the
so
to answer this question. You folks answer it. Yeah.
yeah, I would suggest a full suit, full shirt, blazer, and tie,
Yeah.
and keep it simple. And that would show the interviewer that you're respecting them and you're respecting the college. And that's the biggest point that you would want to portray. I mean, it doesn't hurt that much to put on a tie for a few minutes. So why not go for it?
Right. Right. Okay. What about others?
Yeah, I think the important thing is especially in an offline interview,
Mm,
if you go without a blazer and a tie, everyone else is wearing a blazer and a tie. And I
mm,
think that is the most important thing, that really, if you don't wear a blazer and a tie, you might not only will it, show that, to the interview that maybe you didn't want to put in that little bit of extra effort, it'll
correct.
also hamper your confidence because, you see everyone else dressed up, to a much greater extent. You won't be able to deliver your best. And I would say one thing is when you're dressing up, wear something that makes you feel confident. I think that
Right.
is
Right.
something that is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of these small things really help, really
Correct.
contribute to
Definitely.
you giving a great performance in an interview.
Definitely.
So where if you want to dress up, obviously within certain reasonable limits, but wear something that makes you confident, and you'd be able to deliver more in the interview. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think also with something with new clothes, since we're talking about it, don't just wear new clothes for the first time. Wear them
Yeah.
like
Mm.
once or twice before, get comfortable in those clothes, and then wear it. Because often I've done that in my career for like job interviews and stuff. Gotten new clothes the night before, and then you're just not comfortable. So yeah, keep that in mind as well. Anything else on formals?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
again it's very safe to wear a blazer and
correct.
a
Correct. I
tie,
agree.
because what happened in my SPGN interview was that it was a group interview and three of us were in full attire, but one guy was not wearing his blazer and not wearing his tie. So the interview started not even with the names, but the panelist asking them, why aren't you wearing that? Is there any
Oh
particular reason? But he
man.
had a good reason about
Ah,
an accident he had.
right. Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
like if it's starting on that note, then it's not good, right?
Correct.
So it's
Correct. You're
always safe
standing
to
out for
wear.
the wrong reasons. Correct.
Yeah,
You're right.
exactly.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. And anyway,
Yeah,
you folks are going to be nervous, right? So I think what
yeah,
Rohan mentioned, take care of these little things. These things should not add to your nervousness there, right? And look
yeah,
smart. I
100%.
mean, that smart sort of look will give you that confidence, and get used to wearing blazers. I mean, that's going to be your life for 2 years.
yeah.
That is true. Yeah.
So might as well just get used to that.
Another point is
Yes.
match your blazer color with your pant color and wear formal
Mm.
shoes. You're not coming to a party, you're coming for an interview. It's formal occasion.
Right. Yeah.
You never know what the interview may expect from you. Maybe some interview may be all right with it, but maybe another interview would hard press on a full formal attire. So
Correct.
always don't take the chance.
Yeah. And I would say go in with the assumption that the panel is going to be old school, a little traditional, and a little on the conservative side, right? Just that's the best sort of. So go in that standard formal wear, that muted colors and all of that, not like I don't know, a black shirt and a silver tie. I don't think that's a good idea. I've seen
Don't
that.
go with a red blazer.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. We'll take a couple more questions and then we'll wind up. Okay. interesting question. So Sarath is asking, if you're grilled halfway through the interview, like, grilled sort of in the first half, how can I still be confident? Can I still make it through in spite of being like completely grilled in the first half? They all
Yeah,
know.
I mean, so yes. I mean, that is what happened with me, right? So I think
Correct.
being grilled, you have to understand that being grilled is not, they're not grilling you for the sake of grilling you. It's to understand how you react under pressure. And, not everyone reacts, 100% optimally under pressure. That's the whole point. So be confident. If you don't know something, say you do not know it. I think Aaron pointed this out earlier. Don't lie, don't skirt around the point. If you don't know something, say it with a smile. Be confident. I think that's the most important thing. Because I think even especially when you come here, you will have to get through all of this. Even your interviews. For your summer internships as well. So do develop that habit of remaining calm, trying to smile through everything. And I think if you're being put under pressure, it's common. Everyone is being put under pressure. It's not just you. So remember that, and just don't. I would say don't go into a shell. Don't start to become negative about the interview. Don't start to resent the interviewer for doing this. Understand that they're obviously trying to test this aspect of you. So yeah, I think that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to add is,
Sure.
so even though however stressful it is, it's always advisable to take a pause, right? There's no harm in taking pauses. I just want to make it clear now, because I had a problem taking pauses. For example, one of my weak points was, as soon as a question was fired, I used to answer it as soon back without taking any time. So even if you're grilled for half the interview, just take a pause, drink some water. It's always okay to take a pause and then get yourself back together and then continue.
Correct. That's a good point. And it might seem like an obvious point right now, but you'll forget to do that in the interview. So ask them, it's okay to ask for 30 seconds. It's okay to ask for 1 minute. Once in a while, for a few questions, they'll give you that. They understand what you're going through. Any other tips for handling nervousness or stress, Harsh or Aaron? Anything that worked for you? Yeah.
I will just say one thing. These interviewers are not your enemies, right? And they're not there to, again, make an enemy out of you. They don't even know you. You don't even matter to them, to say the least, right?
True. Yeah.
You're there for 30 minutes. They're gonna interview like 20 people in one day, and they will forget, right? They will grade you and they will forget. Most probably they will forget, right? So, these guys don't have an agenda against you. These guys are just trying to test you. It's essentially a game where that you are being put in a simulated environment to see how you react to the stimulants that are put, right? So again, understand that it's a game, play the game. And if you think that, if you take it personally, it's very hard to recover from a stress interview. Don't take it personally. These guys are not your enemies. In fact, they're nice people, like Rohan previously said. So, just take it as a game, and that is what it is.
That's a good point. That's a good way of looking at it, right? And he brought up a very interesting point. Really, I mean, don't think you're making any difference in their lives, right? So they're gonna just do that, ask you questions, move on. You also move on and learn from it. Right? I think, and also the part that Sanjeev mentioned, it's important to maintain that smile. It's all easy to say this right now, but with practice, you can do it. These folks also did it, right? That's what your mocks and everything are for. So don't worry. You'll get through it. Okay, awesome. We'll take one last question. We'll wrap it up. Okay, Shrinjay is asking that question. Do you have any questions for us? That sometimes comes up, right? Any tips on navigating that? How should they prepare? How important is that question in your opinion?
Yeah.
So actually, okay.
Yeah,
sorry, go
ahead. Okay, fine. It would be better to read about the college, know a bit about the clubs and committees and some of the activities that are going in and about the college, and so that you can perhaps form a question or two. Don't keep it too simple. Try to perhaps relate it to some interest that you have, and so that you can keep your question sort of unique from the rest. Now, speaking from the BITSoM point of view, that will a question to the panel will not affect your candidature very much. If you don't, you can always say that I don't have any question, and it will not have any impact whatsoever. So yeah, but for other colleges, it would be nice to show your interest in that particular college and do some research and try and match it with some interest that you have to bring a sort of unique question to them.
Right. And I think it's important. One thing, if you have tier 1 calls, right? Again, these tiers are also sort of like so random sometimes. But if you have let's say if you have a top 10, top 15 call, right? And then you're appearing for a college which is out of top 10 or out of 15, those colleges would want to know as to why are you here? Why are you even here when you have those calls? Or at that time, I think if they ask you any questions for us, it's a great chance to boost their ego, right? So show them that you took the time out to research on their college and go deeper into that. I think that might work in your favor in those situations, right? Any other tips, folks?
Yeah,
Just
and
one
go
thing
ahead.
to add on that. Yeah, sorry, Sanjeev, I'll just take this one.
yeah.
Okay. So, profs, the people who are interviewing you are profs. Profs love only one thing, academics.
Yes.
Look at their curriculum, look at the college's curriculum, you will find the name of subjects and
Yeah.
what it entails. As simple as that. The questions that you might, want to ask them, just ask them, what are they planning to do? Are they introducing any new courses? I saw that these are the courses that you study. That is what you need to impress a prof. Everything else is okay, but just an interest in their curriculum is what gets you through.
That's a very good point. On the same note, clubs asking about drama, dance, clubs, any extracurricular might not be a good idea with professors, right? So academics, I think, is probably the best thing to stick on. Awesome. I think, we'll probably wind it up. Now, one thing to note, out of these 4 colleges, right? Of course, IIM Calcutta is done. XLRI, the results will be out soon. So, you'll get your calls. So all the best for that. MDI will release, I'm sure, calls very soon.
Yeah.
Sanjeev, if you have any dope on that, you can let us know when the calls are released.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but MDI calls are expected. I can't believe I said the word dope. This is what happens when you work with Gen Z folks, Dale and Dale. And I'm also a bit of a wannabe Gen Z. But anyway, Sanjeev, MDI will release its call soon. BITSoM, their applications are open till 28th, right?
29th Jan.
29th Jan. So their applications are open. If you're interested, please do apply. Okay, awesome. And Sanjeev will, of course, I'll get the resource for him, the current affairs resource, and get him and put it in the comments. Awesome. Thank you so much, folks. I think it was a brilliant session as expected, right? I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought it was very useful. Lots of great questions on chat as well. Folks, before you go, please do hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. We'll come back with more such sessions. But Harsh, Rohan, Aaron, and Sanjeev, thank you really. Thanks a lot taking out the time. I know how busy your lives are. Okay, I know. Every time I talk to you, I can sense the exhaustion in your voice. The fact that you're here taking out the time to help out students really means a lot. Thank you so much.
No problem.
My pleasure.
No problem. It's a pleasure here.
Thank you. All right. See
Thank
you.
you.
All the best, everyone. We'll see you soon.
All the best,
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Bye.
All the best.
All the best.